Genesis, picking up in chapter 33. Jacob and his return into the land now. There's a danger as he returns. Not from his brother Esau as he thinks, but there's danger. We're going to look at the long-expected meeting with Esau and a marvelous event that's happening there. God had so turned Esau's heart that he was actually eager to be reconciled with his brother. Earlier, we saw that Esau had no care whatsoever for his birthright. But now he cares little for old grudges. Jacob was going to be relieved because of Esau's lack of hostility and has to admit once more due to God's intervention. This is the reason. Genesis 33, beginning at verse 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaidens. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. When Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the women and children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God has graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. Jacob showed little weakness and fear as he meets his brother Esau. He saw Esau coming with 400 men, and that, of course, caused fear. Yes, he demonstrated faith, but it was still weak, and he's definitely afraid. He's still got that worldly idea in his mind that his brother wants to harm him. And coming with 400 men would definitely emphasize that point to you. But keep in mind before you judge Jacob, he's still just a man who, like Grandpa Abraham before him, was continually growing in faith. And this event would help him grow in his faith in God and God's sovereign protection of him. Seeing Esau with the men, Jacob lined up his children and wives in order of their importance to him, with Rachel and Joseph in the rear, the safest position to be. Keep in mind this favoritism as we go on with the Bible study here in Genesis, because it's going to come into play shortly in regard to the entire nation of Israel. The contrast between the two brothers as they met after a 20-year separation, it's interesting. Jacob bowed himself down to the ground 7 times in homage, thus halting on his way as he went to meet Esau to bow 7 times, the number of perfection or completion. Now, watch the difference that we see in Esau. Esau's not angry anymore. Well, actually, he runs with, he's excited. He wants to see his brother. He runs to meet Jacob. He embraces him. He kisses him. And they both wept. What a change is made when God fights in his way. In talking with Esau, Jacob consistently referred to himself as your servant or his servant, and to his brother as my Lord, whereas Esau, notice, simply calls Jacob my brother. Now this contrasts with the father's blessing when Isaac made Jacob Esau's Lord. Jacob is definitely now approaching Esau cautiously and humbly. Well, actually, this is in an effort to ward off any possible retaliatory spirit. But it definitely calls to mind what would later be written by Jacob's descendant, the man named Solomon, over in Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Here we have a lesson for us today. Give a soft answer. Don't argue. Don't pick a fight. Soft answer. Verse 33:8 and following. And he said, this is Esau speaking, "What meanest thou by all this drove which I met?" And he said, there are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself." And Jacob said, "Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough." And he urged him, and he took it. Jacob presented Esau with gifts, and he pressed him to accept the gift of 550 animals. When Esau hesitated to accept the livestock, Jacob insisted. Esau says, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what is yours." But Jacob says, "Receive my present at my hand." Then Jacob added, he says, "Accept thee." That is my present. The Hebrew word here is related to bless. Using this particular word, Jacob showed that he was definitely wanting to share his blessing with Esau, trying to soften his earlier actions. It also means that Jacob is not coming back to take anything away from Esau. What is Esau's is Esau's. Jacob is now heading in a different direction. And Jacob's explanation that seeing Esau's face was like seeing the face of God showed he knew this deliverance from harm by Esau was of God. Jacob is beginning to understand more, and his faith is growing. At Peniel, Jacob had seen the face of God and was delivered, back in chapter 32:30. Having lived through that, he then survives Esau. Thus, Esau's favorable reaction to Jacob was God's gracious dealing. God is keeping his word to Jacob. But then again, God always keeps his word. God cannot lie. Verse 12. And he said, "Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee." And he said unto him, "My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herd with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly according to the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord at Seir." And Esau said, "Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me." And he said, "What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord." So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made booths for the cattle. Therefore he named the place. It's called Succoth. Jacob, I guess, cleverly avoided traveling with Esau. He let Esau to think that he needed to travel slowly because of his young children and the young animals. And he would meet Esau later at Seir. But Jacob headed in the opposite direction, north of Succoth, east of the Jordan, and south of the Jabbok, instead of south to Seir. He may have been wise to avoid Edom, but he did not need to deceive his brother again. Here we go, another deception. Thus miracles were worked out here, though, between Jacob and Esau. In Jacob, God brought about a spirit of humility and generosity. Esau was changed from seeking revenge to desiring reconciliation. And these changes were proof that God had delivered Jacob in answer to his prayer from back in chapter 32, where he prayed, "Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother." He went on to say, "For I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother with the children." So we're going to look now at verse 18, following the settlement in Shechem. Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he brought a parcel of land, where he had spread his tent, at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar, and he called it El-Ehi Israel. These verses form a short epilogue of Jacob's sojourn from outside of the land of promise. He returned in peace, and he camped near Shechem, directly west of the Jabbok River, about 20 miles from the Jordan in Canaan. This is where Abram first camped when he arrived in Canaan. Jacob, like Abram, purchased a portion of land there, and like Abram, Jacob set up an altar and named the place El Israel, that is, El is the God of Israel. In this way he acknowledged that the Lord had led him back to the land. Now the following chapters now shift the focus from Jacob basically to Jacob's children. His arrival back in the land and establishing of an altar are the, I guess you'd call the culmination of Jacob's Laban experience. Laban is behind him now. All that is history. So as we come into the next chapter, Jacob will not, he's changed his name 2 more places, but Sukkot here, shelters, booths, was named because of the sheds he built for the livestock. And the name of the altar commemorated the significance of God's relationship to Israel, Jacob's new name. God had prospered and protected him as he had promised that he would do. And Jacob's faith is beginning to grow more every day. Chapter 34, as we start dealing with the children of Jacob, we're going to see the defilement of Dinah. Once Jacob settled in the land, the threat of the Canaanites became a problem. I mean, a major problem. This story is a tangled bundle of good and evil, but then again, almost all the stories of the patriarchs are that way. To Israel, this will certainly be a warning against the defiling effects of interrelationships with Canaanites, even by deception. Israel was not supposed to intermarry with Canaan or make treaties with them. Actually, they would stay separate from them. But the passage also warns against even going to visit the daughters of the land. Moreover, these covenant agreements must not be made in a sham, for the name of Israel was at stake in this land. For Simeon and Levi, they're going to be passed over the blessing because of the things that are going to happen later on. Chapter 34:1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spoke kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. Dinah, Jacob's only daughter, went to visit some of the women of the land. This is innocent looking, but this innocent action loosened a stone which caused a major landslide. Jacob had made a commercial connection with Shechem. He purchased some land from him, but Dinah's step towards social interaction is going to have serious complications and ramifications. This is a difference. There is a difference, rather, between business and social dealings. It would have been far more advantageous for Jacob and his family to avoid the Canaanites altogether, and of course it certainly would have been much, much safer. Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, lay with Jacob's daughter, and he took her. Literally, he afflicted her, he oppressed her, he violated her, In other words, he raped her. After a woman was debased in this manner, she had no expectancy of ever having a valid marriage. Shechem did, however, love the girl and wanted to take her as his wife. But here again, isn't this getting the cart before the horse, so to speak? Verse 5, and Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with the cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. In response to Diana's situation, it was most unusual when you look at Jacob's reaction. When Jacob heard that he had defiled, polluted, raped his daughter, he kept quiet about it until his sons got home. I don't think I could have done that. I think I probably would have been a little more upset and probably let the words or whatever fly. We read, Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. This is a peace meeting. This is a summit meeting, if you will. Hamor is attempting to diffuse the situation before it could get too far out of hand. Again, this could going to be too little too late. His sons, however, Jacob's sons, were incensed. I mean, well, this is a disgraceful thing. They said, folly, that's what it is. The word means folly, had been done in Israel. By the way, this is the first mention of the nation by this name, Israel. Such a sexual evil was infamous, incriminating the whole community, which thing ought not to be done. In other words, this shouldn't have been done, period, no matter who you are, Canaanite or not. While the sons were filled with grief and anger, Jacob seemed passive and just couldn't seem to pull things together. Perhaps if Dinah were his daughter by Rachel rather than by Leah, he would have acted differently. Now, it's only speculation. But look at when he put his children in together, he put the handmaids and their children, Leah and her children, and then kept Rachel and Joseph to the end. If his daughter had been through Rachel, would he have been more upset? I can't answer that, but I'm just speculating that he would have. He seems very calm over the situation, much more than I would have been, and a great deal calmer than his sons are, and his sons are going to demonstrate their anger. Continuing with the peace process now in verse 8. And Hamor communed with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give her him to wife, and make ye marriages among us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get your possessions therein. And Shechem said unto her father and to her brethren, Let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me, I will give. Ask me whatsoever dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me. But give me the damsel to wife. So now the Canaanites are giving a proposal. It's a peace treaty. It's also a political and business offering here. Hamor, Shechem's father, made a diplomatic speech. Great advantages will be gained by both sides for this agreement to intermarry. He very blatantly says to him, he's offering Israel the land. Well, it's God, not the Canaanites to give the land. That was already a done deal. Way back with Abraham, the land belongs to their possession. It's not Hamor's to give, it's God's. Hamor's latest appeal to his fellow citizens showed that he was deceptive all along. We're going to see in verse 23 that his whole plan is to take everything that Jacob has, his possessions. No good would come to Israel from trusting the defiling Canaanites. Treaties or contracts are worthless unless both sides are honorable and truthful. Shechem then offered to pay Jacob and the brothers whatever price for the bride they suggested. Now he's trying to buy his way out of money. If negotiations fail, offer money. Here again, some things never change. Money, for most people, money is their God. And people think that they can just work miracles by offering money. Yeah, they think money can buy them out of any situation. But believers trust God, not cash. In God we trust should be more than a motto on a dollar bill. It should be a fact that lives in our heart. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully. Here's that word again, deceitfully. And said, because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing, or give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. But in this we will consent unto you, if ye will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. Then we will give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters unto us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if ye will not hearken unto this, to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter, and we will be gone. And the words pleased Hamor, and Shechem's, Hamor's son. And the young man deferred not to do the thing, because he had delighted in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came into the gate of their city, and communed with the men of the city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore let us dwell in the land, and trade therein. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people. If every male among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised, shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearkened all the way out of the gate of the city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of the city. Once again we see the truth of the fact that the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. How did the brothers answer Shechem? The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully. Oh, how dishonesty causes problem after problem, and this deception is going to cause great problems for the people of Shechem, for the family of Jacob, and the brothers especially. The brothers, not Jacob, refused a treaty because they said Shechem was not circumcised, and intermarriage would be a disgrace, that is, a reproach or a scorn. These words, uncircumcised, suggest being impure, a disgrace, and that describes the Canaanites pretty well, doesn't it? So the brothers planned for Shechem's outward conforming to circumcision, but of course, this was not a true covenant. They, like their father, were dealing with Shechem deceitfully. They apparently assumed Shechem and Hamor would never consent to their males being circumcised as a condition of intermarriage. But the Canaanites actually accepted the proposal, and every man in town was circumcised, not only so that Shechem could have Jacob's daughter, but so that they could eventually acquire all the Israelites' property, livestock, everything. Here again, follow the money. Verse 25. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's daughter, Dinah's brethren, took each man a sword, and came into the city boldly, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went out. And the sons of Jacob came into the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep, and their oxen, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives they took captive, and they spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? Well, the outworking of the plot of these fellows is tragic. Simeon, Levi, and no doubt their household, their servants, slaughtered the Canaanite males, while they were still in pain from circumcision and weak from from healing up. The brothers then rescued their sister, plundered the cities and the field of the Shechemites, taking their property, livestock, wealth, women, and children. This all struck fear into Jacob, for it could bring a serious repercussion upon him and his family. He said, I'm going to stink in the land. They're going to gather together. I'm few in number. They're going to come in large army and destroy us. The brothers' reply is simple. Should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? In other words, should Shechem have treated their sister like a prostitute? Simeon and Levi acted as judge, jury, and executioners, all in one. Later, the nation of Israel was instructed to avoid defilement with the Canaanites. Israel's foreign policy was to destroy them completely before they could defile the Israelites. Listen to what they're told in Deuteronomy 20, beginning at verse 16. But of the cities of these people, which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that they should teach you not to do after the abominations which they have done unto their gods. So should ye sin against the Lord your God. In this story, the instinct of Simeon and Levi is correct. They wanted to defend their sister. But because of their unbridled passion, they're later going to be passed over for Jacob's blessing. We'll see that in chapter 49. Moreover, a deceptive covenant was not to be dangled even before the pagans. On occasion, however, in the future, God would use Simeon and a Levite to help as his instrument of judgment. You'll see that in 2 Kings chapter 10. We'll stop there and pick up next week in chapter 35 and return to Bethel.